Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tech News Now. Buckle up, because today we're going on a deep dive into a topic that's literally out of this world. We're talking space junk.
Space junk.
Yep, space junk.
Really?
Yeah, you heard that right. It might sound like something out of a cheesy sci-fi movie, but
Yeah.
trust me, it's a real issue and it's only getting bigger.
Huh, interesting. What's interesting is that we often associate space with you know, cutting edge technology and exploration, but rarely do we stop to think about the mess we're leaving behind.
It's true. We're all excited about sending rockets and satellites up there.
Yeah.
But what happens to them when they're done?
Right.
Well, some of it turns into space junk. Millions of pieces of debris are orbiting Earth, from tiny paint flecks to massive rocket parts. And you know what? Some of it has decided to take a vacation back to Earth uninvited.
Yeah, and sometimes those unexpected visits can be a bit alarming. Take, for example, what happened in Kenya on December 30th of last year. A metal ring almost 9 feet wide and weighing over 1,000 pounds decided to make a surprise appearance in a peaceful village near Nairobi.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine. This wasn't some tiny piece of metal either. This thing was huge. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But it really makes you think, doesn't it? What if it had landed in a more populated area?
Right. It could have been disastrous. The Kenya Space Agency, they had to do some serious investigation to figure out what this mysterious ring was. After all, it's not every day you find a giant metal donut in your backyard. They eventually determined that it was a separation ring from a space launch vehicle.
Okay, so a separation ring. For those of us who aren't rocket scientists, what exactly is that?
Well, it's basically a component that helps different stages of a rocket separate during launch. They're supposed to fall back to Earth in a controlled way, either burning up in the atmosphere or landing in, remote designated areas. Clearly, in this case, things didn't go exactly according to plan.
So it's not like someone just chucked a giant frisbee into space and forgot about it.
Uh-huh. No, not quite. These rings are designed with re-entry in mind. But this incident highlights the fact that even with careful planning, things can go wrong. And the more we launch into space, the greater the chances of something like this happening again.
Right, and this Kenyan incident wasn't even an isolated event. Didn't a family in Florida sue NASA in 2024? Because used battery pallets from the International Space Station landed on their property.
Oh, yeah, they did. And it's a good example of how the consequences of space junk aren't limited to, remote areas. This debris can literally land anywhere on the planet.
It really makes you appreciate those watch for falling rock signs, doesn't it? Only now it's watch for falling rocket parts.
Exactly, haha. It's a humorous thought, but it underscores the very real risk that space debris poses. And while the chances of being hit by a piece of falling space junk are still relatively low, the potential consequences are significant.
Okay, so we have millions of pieces of space junk whizzing around up there, some of which are crashing back to Earth. What can we even do about it? Is it just a matter of time before someone gets a satellite to the head?
Well, thankfully, there are some brilliant minds working on solutions. They range from the practical to what might seem, dare I say, a bit far-fetched.
Far-fetched, like attaching rocket boosters to the junk and sending it further into space.
Haha, that's an interesting thought, but not quite. One idea is to create cleaner satellites. These would be equipped with technology to essentially grab and collect space debris. Imagine it like a giant space vacuum cleaner, tidying up our orbital mess.
So like little space garbage trucks. So that's an image I can get behind. I'd love to see one of those in action. But seriously, how would they even round up all that junk?
Well, another approach is to develop passive systems that can safely deorbit old satellites. These systems would essentially guide the satellite back down to Earth in a controlled manner, ensuring they burn up in the atmosphere or land in remote areas like the ocean.
Okay, so it's like giving these old satellites a designated landing spot, instead of letting them fall wherever they please. But what about all the tiny pieces? We can't exactly give a paint fleck landing instructions, can we?
That's where things get tricky. You see, even a tiny piece of debris traveling at thousands of miles per hour can cause serious damage to a satellite or spacecraft. And that brings us to something called the Kessler syndrome.
The Kessler syndrome. Sounds ominous.
It is a serious concern. Imagine a chain reaction where one collision creates more debris, which leads to even more collisions. It's like a domino effect that could eventually create a belt of debris so dense that it could block our access to space for generations.
Okay, so we're not just talking about the occasional piece of metal falling to Earth. We're talking about the potential for a full-blown space traffic jam.
Yeah.
Which could seriously disrupt our access to space and all the technology we depend on.
You got it. This is why it's crucial that we address this issue now, before it gets even more out of hand.
All right, so we've got the problem laid out. Whole lot of junk, some big, some small, all potentially causing trouble. In the next part, let's dive into what we can actually do about it. What are some of the specific technologies being developed? And what can we, as regular Earthbound folks, actually do to help? Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Tech News Now. Before we went to, wherever it is we go when we're talking to you, we were discussing the, shall we say, less glamorous side of space exploration? Space junk?
Yep, all that debris we've left up there. But it's not all doom and gloom, right? You were telling us about some pretty cool solutions being developed.
Absolutely. It's a complex problem, but there are some incredibly innovative ideas being explored. For example, remember those cleaner satellites we mentioned? Well, one concept is actually called a space net.
A space net. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm picturing a giant net in space, maybe made of some super strong material, like a cosmic fishing net for satellites.
You're on the right track. These space nets are designed to capture large pieces of debris. Imagine a long, thin net deployed from a spacecraft. It would snag the debris, slow it down, and allow it to safely deorbit, burning up in the atmosphere.
So it's like a giant space butterfly net, gently guiding these pieces back down to Earth.
Well, maybe not gently, but you get the idea. Another approach is active debris removal, which would involve sending specialized spacecraft equipped with robotic arms into orbit.
Like a little claw machine, but for space junk.
Kind of. Think of these robots as highly skilled space mechanics. They would grapple onto pieces of debris and either deorbit them or move them to what we call a graveyard orbit.
A graveyard orbit. That sounds a bit spooky. What exactly is a graveyard orbit?
It's essentially a designated area in space where we can safely store defunct satellites and other large pieces of debris far away from operational satellites and spacecraft. It's like a cosmic retirement home for old satellites.
So we're giving them a nice, quiet place to rest after a long career of orbiting Earth. But these solutions sound incredibly complex. How do you even find and target specific pieces of debris in the vastness of space?
You're right, it's not an easy task. Active debris removal requires cutting-edge robotics, sophisticated sensors, and powerful propulsion systems. We need to know exactly where the debris is and how it's moving to successfully capture it.
It's like trying to hit a bullseye on a dartboard that's constantly moving and millions of miles away.
Pretty much. But despite the challenges, these solutions are being actively researched and developed.
So we've got space nets, space claws, and cosmic retirement homes for satellites. Sounds like a lot is happening in the world of space junk cleanup. But what about the stuff we can do here on Earth? I mean, I don't have a rocket in my backyard or a team of robot engineers at my disposal.
That's a great question. And while it's true that we can't all be space junk warriors, there are things we can do to make a difference. The first and most important thing is raising awareness. Talk to your friends, family, colleagues about this issue. The more people who understand the problem, the more likely we are to find solutions.
So it's like a public service announcement, but for space junk. Get the word out. It's real. It's a problem, and we need to do something about it.
Exactly. Another important thing is supporting companies and organizations that are working on solutions to space debris. You can invest in companies developing innovative technologies, donate to research institutions studying the problem, or simply choose to support businesses that prioritize sustainability in their space operations.
So if I'm choosing between two satellite TV providers, I should pick the one that has a solid plan for dealing with their old satellites.
That's a great way to think about it. Every little bit helps. We're all consumers in the space economy, whether we realize it or not.
Okay, so we can raise awareness, we can vote with our wallets. What about governance? Don't they have a role to play in all of this?
Absolutely. Governments play a crucial role. They can enact policies and regulations that incentivize responsible space practices. This could include requiring companies to deorbit their satellites at the end of their operational life, investing in debris removal technologies, or even establishing international agreements on space traffic management.
So it's kind of like air traffic control, but for space.
You got it. We need a set of rules and regulations that help us manage traffic in space and prevent collisions. It's not just about cleaning up the mess we've already made, but also about preventing future messes.
So to sum it up, we've got some exciting tech solutions on the horizon, but we also need to raise awareness, make smart consumer choices, and push for responsible government policies. Sounds like it's going to take a multi-pronged approach to tackle this cosmic clutter.
You nailed it. It's a complex issue that requires collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to responsible stewardship of our celestial neighborhood.
All right, so we've explored the problem, the potential solutions, and what we can do about it. What does all this mean for the future? What does the future of space exploration look like in a world where debris is a growing concern? Let's find out in our final part. Welcome back to Tech News Now. We've been on quite a journey today, haven't we? From metal rings mysteriously landing in Kenya to space nets and robot claws tidying up our orbital mess.
Yeah, it really highlights the wide-ranging impacts of space debris.
And it's made me realize that this isn't just some abstract problem for future generations to deal with. It's happening right now, and it's affecting all of us.
You're absolutely right. And it's not something we can just, brush aside. It's something we need to take seriously, not just for ourselves, but for future generations of explorers and scientists.
Exactly. We can't just keep launching stuff into space without thinking about the consequences. We need to be responsible stewards of space, recognizing that it's a shared resource for all humankind.
I completely agree. And that brings us to an important question. What does the future of space exploration look like? In a world where debris is a growing concern.
Yeah, are we going to have to start wearing helmets every time we go outside?
Yeah.
Just in case a satellite decides to make an unscheduled landing?
Huh? I wouldn't recommend investing in a space debris-proof helmet just yet, but it does highlight the need for a shift in our approach to space exploration. We need to move away from the launch it and forget it mentality and embrace a more sustainable and cooperative approach.
So it's not just about cleaning up the mess we've already made, but also about changing our mindset for the future. We need to think about the entire life cycle of our space activities, from design and launch to end-of-life disposal.
Exactly. We need to design spacecraft that are inherently less likely to create debris, for example, using materials that naturally decay in orbit, or incorporating systems for controlled deorbiting. We also need to invest in technologies for active debris removal, essentially cleaning up past mistakes.
So like a combination of prevention and cleanup. Makes sense.
Huh.
But those technologies are still being developed, right? What about the immediate future?
Well, in the short term, we're likely to see a greater emphasis on international cooperation. As more countries and companies get involved in space activities, the need for coordination and collaboration becomes even more critical.
So more communication,
Yeah.
more shared responsibility,
Yeah.
and maybe even some space traffic rules.
Exactly. We need to create a system where everyone is playing by the same rules, minimizing the risks of collisions and debris generation.
So this isn't just about scientists and engineers coming up with fancy new technologies. It's about all of us working together to ensure the safe and sustainable use of space.
You've got it. And that includes everyone, governments, companies, and individuals.
Okay, so we all have a role to play. But what can we, as regular folks who aren't rocket scientists or space lawyers, actually do to help?
Well, we already talked about raising awareness and supporting responsible companies. You can also advocate for stronger space debris policies from your government representatives. Make it clear that you care about this issue and want to see action taken.
So write to our representatives. Tell them we want clean space. Done and done.
Exactly. You can also stay informed about the latest developments in space debris research and advocacy. There are some great organizations and websites out there dedicated to this issue.
Okay, so get informed, get involved, and make our voices heard. It sounds like we can make a difference even from down here on Earth.
Absolutely. Every little bit counts. Remember, space is not some separate entity. It's an extension of our own planet. And just like we're striving to protect our oceans, forests, and atmosphere here on Earth, we need to extend that same level of care and responsibility to the space environment.
That's a great way to put it. It's all connected.
It is. And ultimately, it's about embracing a vision of the future, where humanity's relationship with space is one of harmony and respect, where we explore and discover without leaving a trail of destruction in our wake.
Well said. And on that hopeful note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into space junk. We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, the future of space is in our hands. Let's choose a path that leads to a sustainable and awe-inspiring future for generations to come. Thanks for tuning in to Tech News Now.